ZBYSZKO, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on! Get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, whatever you guys want to talk about here on Wrestling Observer Live. Second hour guest we're going to have will be Larry ZBYSZKO. First hour, we're going to be taking phone calls. A lot of busy people this weekend, which we'll talk about in a little while, because Vegas was the place to be over the weekend, and in fact, Bryan is driving back from Vegas, and he may be joining us during the show, but he may not, because it depends on how his cell service is on the trip back, and so far we haven't heard from him, so I don't know, but there was Cauliflower Alley Club last night, their annual convention, and of course last night was also the Randy Couture-Chuck Liddell match fight, which Chuck Liddell won in 2 minutes and 6 seconds with a right cross to the side of Randy Couture's head, winning the championship for Chuck Liddell after a long, long wait, trying to get the championship. He'd earned a title shot with Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz had stalled up for a year. Then they expected that he would beat Randy Couture for the championship, and in fact did not. And another 2 years after that, and another title shot, and Chuck Liddell won. And talk about that. Also, last night, a tremendous Matt Hughes fight. Monday night, tomorrow night on Raw, Hulk Hogan will be there answering the challenge, the question from Shawn Michaels, if he will team with him against Hassan and Daivari on the Backlash pay-per-view, which is 2 weeks from tonight, and in fact, he will. And that will be interesting, and also, they're doing Raw and SmackDown together. It's from Madison Square Garden, and going to be interesting what's going on. Of course, we're in the middle of the, like we've talked about for weeks, the biggest month I think that we've had in years, if ever, between WrestleMania a couple weeks ago, the UFC special, we had the UFC, and this coming weekend, Saturday night is the beginning of the Pride middleweight tournament, which is the same division as the UFC light heavyweight division, not to be confused. And then, of course, Sunday, the 8-cage match TNA Lockdown pay-per-view. And then a week from Sunday, of course, is Backlash. Real quick, you can join us at 1-800-878-PLAY. We've got a couple of phone lines available. So you can join in, because we're going to be taking phone calls first hour. ZBYSZKO's second hour. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Bryan Alvarez, of course, as we mentioned earlier, is on the road coming back from Cauliflower Alley last night, where Adrian Street and Miss Linda were married. I had always, everybody, not just me, everybody had thought that they had been married for years and years, forever, long before they ever came to the United States from England, as a matter of fact. Also, I guess one of the biggest stories of the week, maybe the biggest, was that WWE did some spring cleaning. A lot of people were let go over the past week. Among them, Matt Hardy, obviously the biggest name, and Rhino. Rhino we actually knew about when we were talking about on the show last weekend. Matt Hardy was let go, which was quite the surprise. And it's going to be the reaction to that. I don't know. What makes the company look real bad in my mind. I don't know. What do you guys think on the Matt Hardy situation, being let go? Everyone knows the story now, and it's become a public story. Matt Hardy, of course, and Amy Dumas, Lita, had been living together for years, had been together for 6 years, and she and Adam Copeland, Edge, had an affair, and Matt Hardy ended up getting fired. It ended up becoming public. And there's a lot of negativity. There are people who are defending the company. Don't get me wrong, for the feeling that Matt Hardy was probably more responsible than anyone else for the story getting out, which is not entirely true, but I would say certainly more responsible. Adam Copeland didn't say anything, and Amy Dumas always, averted the subject. And Matt Hardy had commented on it after it broke on the website. But anyway, the basic gist of all this is the feeling is that Matt Hardy was, I don't want to say the innocent person, but he's the one whose girlfriend left, and he's the one who ends up getting fired over it. And I don't know. I understand the star system in wrestling, and Edge is a bigger star, and the feeling is somebody had to go, and we're going to side with the big star, no matter who was right or wrong in the locker room. Matt Hardy had a lot of friends, and it's made Edge kind of an unpopular guy in a lot of circles. Very unpopular guy in a lot of circles. So, anyway, we got every line lit up at 1-800-878-PLAY. Also, let go were Chili Willie, Will Jones, who was working developmental. Aaron Aguilera, who was out. He just had neck surgery in January, I believe, and was about a month or two away from returning. And, of course, Rhino that we talked about. Molly Holly on Monday night quit the promotion. She gave notice. I think that there's just a lot of reasons. I think she saw the future of the company, and the future of the company is that they want women. They want women in bikinis. They don't want women wrestlers. And for the most part, Molly Holly and Trish Stratus are considered by far the best women wrestlers in the company. But, there's not a lot of interest, I think, when it comes to the top management into whether these women can wrestle good matches. It's more a matter of how little can they wear, and she wasn't willing, and she didn't have the look to wear very little, I guess, and saw the direction and saw that they were doing another Diva search. And, the last Diva search, they hired 7 people and fired a bunch of women wrestlers in the process, like Jazz was a good wrestler, Gail Kim, who had promised to be a good wrestler and was good, had a lot of good moves, and we were down to 3 active wrestlers and Lita, who's recovering from knee surgery on the roster. It was Molly Holly, Victoria, and Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus, of course, is injured. Victoria is injured but won't take any time off, and you can see why. And now Molly Holly's gone, so now they're going to try to train some more models to wrestle. Michelle McCool, well, of course, that's on the SmackDown side, will be wrestling very soon as well. Okay, we are going to, before we start with phone calls, you can go to sportsbyline.com and watch Ron Barr's Sports Byline USA in-studio interviews. Watch Jose Canseco talk about his and baseball steroid use. Broadcaster Dick Enberg reflects on his outstanding career. And movie director Dana Brown takes you inside the making of Dust to Glory. It's available now, so check it out. Go to sportsbyline.com. Click the video button to watch Ron Barr's Sports Byline in-studio interviews. We're going to go first to Chris in Vancouver. Chris, what's going on?
Hey, Dave. How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Right on. First off, I want to say you have a great show. I love your work that you do on the WrestlingObserver.com and your publications. I just want to say thanks for doing a great job for us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, second of all, I just want a couple questions for you. First off, Val Venus, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten released because his career has really gone by the wayside. I mean, he's been jobbing to Viscera, and there's really no use for him. I mean, he's only wrestling on Heat. So, to me, I'm just surprised that he wasn't one of the guys let go.
I think that they need a certain number of bodies just to do these tours, and you need a little bit more because you need an insurance policy because guys are always going down, and he doesn't have any. It doesn't appear that he has any enemies. At the same time, I think it's real clear that they're never going to push him. Guys like him and Steven Richards, I'm sure they're nervous. They can go at any time, but just hasn't happened yet.
Right, and my second question is, Marty Jannetty, I believe he reported some time ago that he re-signed with the WWE, and I'm surprised he hasn't, re-debuted again. I thought, for instance, that he'd probably be the guy that would help out Shawn Michaels in that, with Daivari and Hassan, but ends up being Hogan. So is he coming in, or
He's scheduled to start in May. The problem with Marty Jannetty is he went in there, and it was just, this thing, right? They wanted to reunite the Rockers. And more just, it was part of the Kurt Angle thing, really, that Kurt was going to beat him. So they reunite the Rockers, and it gets over much better than anyone expected, and he did a good job in that match. So then the next night, instead of doing a 2-minute squash with Kurt Angle, they decided to go out there and do a match, a long match. And, Kurt, there's 2 Kurt Angles. There's the Kurt Angle who's out there doing that short match, trying to protect himself and not do much. And then there's the Kurt Angle when you go, Kurt, we need a 20-minute match. And the Kurt Angle, when we say we need a 20-minute match, is incredible. I mean, every time out, the match with Eddie Guerrero on Thursday was off the charts. The Shawn Michaels match was off the charts. The Jannetty match was great, and Jannetty got a contract out of that match. The plan is for Jannetty to start next month. They don't, I think that what happened is that with WrestleMania and then after WrestleMania, kind of cleaning up after WrestleMania, they didn't really want to start anyone new, and there's a lot of guys, Psychosis, Super Crazy, Juventud Guerrera. All these guys are ready to go. The Dudleys in OVW ready to come back. And it's just a question of, coming up with ways to work them back rather than just putting them on TV for no reason. But Jannetty, I think, inevitably is going to wind up in that Val Venus position. I just don't see what they're going to do with him unless, I guess, they could turn him on Shawn Michaels, but I don't see that. I don't see Shawn Michaels spending time with wrestling Marty Jannetty either. So I don't know what's going to happen to Marty.
Right. All right. And before I let you go, just want to get your thoughts on Saturday night's main event returning to NBC. Is that what it's going to be, or is it just going to be kind of just like what they do, like a two-shot deal kind of thing?
Saturday night main event's going to return. They've got a contract for 2 shows a year for 3 years, and it it obviously can do more if the ratings hold up. It's a different era. Saturday's main event was just huge in the 80s. Raw, we didn't have Raw and SmackDown having main event matches every single week on television. So the uniqueness of it is different. I think that the world has changed and it needs to be live or a day, or maybe 1 day tape delay or something like that, as opposed to, it used to be weeks and weeks. They used to tape that Saturday's main event sometimes as much as 3 weeks earlier, sometimes a month earlier. And, the reason that they could get away with that was, partially because the news didn't travel as fast, but also because their angles didn't change as fast. Now, with angles changing every week, you've got to do that, a lot more timely. I don't see it being as big a deal as it was in the 80s, but it can be a real big deal because, NBC is a lot stronger than USA Network, so much stronger. And in that time slot where people are used to watching Saturday Night Live forever and ever, you're exposed to a lot of new people. You expose your wrestling and your wrestling stars to a lot of new people. And, that's the kind of exposure that pro wrestling needs. So, obviously, I think that's a big positive. I think it's a large reason why they ended up, leaning towards that deal. They were forced to take the deal in the end because Spike pulled out. But, that was why they were leaning towards it, was because Spike couldn't offer them anything on CBS, which they had hoped that they were going to get when they first made the Spike deal and never materialized. This one, it was right there in the contract. You're getting 2 network specials a year.
All right, thanks, David. Keep up the good work.
Okay, very welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Garrett in Redlands, California. Garrett, what's going on?
Oh, not much. But anyways, about the. I never thought about that with Marty Jannetty trying to be like the partner for Hulk Hogan. Shawn Michaels for that Backlash match. Come on. Pretty much it's great that he's around, but we've pretty much seen what he does, and like WrestleCrap says, don't wish for him more to come back after they did a WrestleMania update on number 9. If you know what I mean. I can't knock Marty Jannetty as far as he had 2 matches there, and he looked good in both. As far as long-term, I don't know what they're going to do with him, and I don't know. I think that there was a lot of momentum after that Angle match where we go, my God, he's so good, we got to sign him. But I hope that they had some really good ideas before they made that decision, because if not, he'll just be a guy languishing on the roster. Yeah. Oh, yeah, another thing, too. I was kind of shocked about the 3 releases, too, with Rhino, Matt Hardy, and Molly Holly.
Well, Molly Holly left on her own. That wasn't company decision.
Oh, okay.
But and Rhino was no surprise. Rhino was pretty much everyone could see that one coming. Matt Hardy surprised me a lot. Everyone assumed he was going to be moved to SmackDown, but not fired.
Yeah, but also I think the last appearance he was on a WWE show was at the Raw Lita and Kane's wedding that I was at.
Right.
Anaheim. But I'll tell you one thing, though, that I'm kind of, I hate to say this, but I'm kind of happy that they did get rid of some people, because last SmackDown, if you saw that Eminem debut. Yeah. Melina Perez, she's a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She's got talent. She's going to make it. I've known that for a while, but she's going to make it.
Yeah, she's a friend of mine, and I used to work with her at EWF down in San Bernardino. I was a referee there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so, I'd like to see how well she could do. I've seen some of her stuff in UPW, and hell, hey, I refereed her first match, too.
Well, I don't think they're going to be, they'll use her as a wrestler on occasion, for skin, but, I think her main role is going to be as a manager for, Johnny Nitro and Joey Mercury, which is Joey Matthews' new ring name.
Yeah.
Okay. Garrett, anything else? Because we got to get running. We got a commercial break.
No problem, but thanks for answering my question and everything.
Okay, you're very welcome. We'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Of course, Bryan in transit. In fact, we were trying to get some UFC guests, and everybody was in transit leaving Vegas on the plane right now. We were scheduled to have Mike today. He's in transit as well. Second hour, we're going to be joined by Larry ZBYSZKO. And, in fact, we'll talk a little bit about TNA and his golfing and Morphoplex. And we'll probably talk about that, the commercial that was running on this show for the last many weeks. Huge week coming up with, of course, Raw from Madison Square Garden on Monday night with Jim Ross against Triple H. They will also be taping tomorrow night. Before Raw, they will be taping SmackDown, and that will have Big Show and Booker T. The winner of that match will then go to a three-way match in Birmingham, England, which would be a week from Tuesday, which would also include Kurt Angle and JBL. And the winner of that match, most likely JBL, will face John Cena for the SmackDown WWE Championship on May 22nd at the pay-per-view in Minneapolis at Target Center. So that's another pay-per-view to talk about. Of course, that's well into May. Saturday night is the Pride pay-per-view from the Osaka Dome, and it's the beginning of the deepest talent tournament in the history of mixed martial arts. 16 guys in the only round one will be in the tournament, but you've got, between Vanderlei Silva, who may be the toughest 205-pound fighter in the world, Antonio Ruggiero Nogueira, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Kazushi Sakuraba, Yuki Kondo, Igor Vovchanchin, who's a big favorite right now, Alistair Overeem, Peter Belfort. There's a judo guy from South Korea who's one of the best judo guys of any weight class from the 90s. Hidehiko Yoshida, gold medalist in judo, three-time Olympian. So, I mean, it's just an incredible array of talent on that show. And then, of course, Sunday, 8 cage matches. We got one line available at 1-800-878-PLAY. I also want to remind you that you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com. We've got daily news updates, all the latest information on pro wrestling and mixed martial arts, plus information on how to get the Wrestling Observer newsletter that I put out every week, and Figure 4 Weekly that Bryan puts out every week. And this week, tons of stuff because I've got 2 issues coming out this week because between the Brock Lesnar lawsuit, everything about that, about The Rock, I talked to him and got some notes as far as his future, a couple of movies, his future in wrestling. So we got that. We've got, what other stuff do we got? More on of course, on all the firings, details of what went down with everyone when they were let go, and just a whole lot more. So anyway, all the news, of course, the UFC news, fallout from the TV special, fallout from last night's pay-per-view, no shortage of news right about now. Okay, anyway, we will go now to John in Kentucky. John, what's going on?
Hey, guys, how you doing? I got a couple quick questions for you here. One, how long has it been since, y'all was on the Marty Jannetty subject? How long has it been since he's been in the ring?
Well, Marty was in the ring a lot. Let me think. I think he wrestled on, I don't know if he wrestled this weekend, but he wrestled last weekend in...
I'm talking about before this
in Cleveland
thing and everything.
Well, he was doing indies, but not. I didn't see his name that often, but I would see his name. I don't know. I had seen his name, every month or so, maybe every 2 months.
Before the reason why I was asking, because I'm a pretty big fan, and that one gentleman said, he really didn't want to see a push of him or anything. But if you notice, Marty never broke a sweat during that match with Angle, and he hung with Angle throughout the whole thing. Yeah, that was a strong match. He was. It surprised me. I figured he'd been, he never even broke a sweat in that match.
Well, he surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, and the second question I had is, what's going on with Austin here? Is he coming back or what?
Austin is, he's under contract. He's going to be on TV every now and then. He's not going to be there every week. I think they got to figure out what to do with him. It's tough because... you could do what he did with Simon, Dean, and Maven a couple weeks ago on Raw, but that's like same old. And they got to come up with something new. And, he's never going to wrestle full time, and he probably will wrestle again. But I think that, him in his own mind knows, he doesn't have too many matches left. It's kind of like Mick Foley, and when you're in that state, you want to make sure that everything you do has meaning and is going to be really big, or why do it? And I don't know if they've come up with something that big, or maybe they want to save his match to when, his movie comes out so they can kind of like double the publicity on Austin. Although he hasn't even started filming his movie, so the movie coming out is going to be a long, probably a year away, or yeah, I don't know. I mean, he'll be on TV every now and then, kind of like Hogan, possibly. But and maybe as a weekly character for a short period of time when the publicity, when they need the publicity for him.
Right. Hey, let me ask you, I want your opinion on this, too. We had a discussion about this the other day that do you think that JBL and John Cena match at WrestleMania was one of the worst matches you'd ever seen in your life?
It wasn't one of the worst matches I've ever seen, but it was a really disappointing. It was a really disappointing match.
It was too quick. There was nothing to it. There was, I'm surprised there wasn't even no outside interference. There was nothing. Well,
I think that the lack of outside interference was because they wanted Cena to go over with no controversy with his move, because they really want to push Cena, but it was put in a position where it came off secondary, and they didn't have a good match, and everyone knows it. The one thing that Cena's got going, Cena is not a great wrestler. He's got the talking going for him and the charisma, and, that's why they gave him the belt. And, they've got the movie coming out. I mean, they got a lot of eggs in John Cena's basket, and they really think that, he's the one who can be the next Rock. And, unfortunately, in the ring, he isn't close.
The Rock wasn't that great of a wrestler when he first started either. Rock wasn't great when he first started, but Rock was very good after a while. And John Cena's been around for a long time. I just don't know that John Cena's ever going to be a good wrestler. I think that we kind of have to, accept it or not accept it, that John Cena's going to be, as long as his charisma, holds up and the people like him, he's going to be a main performer. But, unless he's in the ring with Kurt Angle or Eddie Guerrero, or somebody of that caliber, I don't know that we're going to be seeing, great wrestling matches out of him, or even good wrestling matches out of him. All right. Well, Barry, I appreciate it, and I really like y'all's show.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to Ed in San Antonio. Ed, what's going on?
I think you don't have Ed. It's James, actually.
You're right. It is James. Ed's on the other... Okay, it's James. What's going on?
Hey there. I don't want to keep you too long since I'm on somebody else's line. So, did you read the answer to the Brock Lesnar lawsuit?
I just spent a day writing about it.
I heard it was really some interesting legal reasoning and some really interesting things they put into it.
It was interesting. I mean, the one thing that they have that there's, Brock Lesnar, without any question, okay, had a non-compete clause that he signed, and he violated that non-compete clause probably because he did appear on a New Japan show, but he didn't wrestle on the New Japan show. He didn't even do an interview on the show, but he did walk to a ringside seat on the show. Was announced on the show. I think they're playing that up for maybe more than it's worth, and certainly from a damages standpoint, far more than it's worth, because he didn't do WWE any damages. But you could say that he violated that. Aside from that, when I read WWE's response, for the most part, I thought that it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
and then they got good lawyers. I shouldn't say that, but I just, when they're just some of the things they were doing, like there was a line in the lawsuit where Brock Lesnar said, or Brock Lesnar's attorney when he wrote the suit said, like, Brock was, junior college national champion in '98. NCAA, runner-up in the Nationals in '99 at University of Minnesota, NCAA champion in 2000, right? And WWE's response is, we have no information to verify that, so we deny it. And it's just like, come on,
you have to say that, Dave. We're taught this in law school. You're supposed to, if you can't, because there's a reason why you do something like that. I know it sounds stupid from your vantage point, but you have to deny specific things, or else if you don't deny, it's accepted into the record as is. I know that.
Yeah, but okay. First of all, no. There's things that they disagreed on that I can understand that, but to disagree that he was NCAA champion in the year 2000. It's not an arguing point. It's a fact.
Well, there's a reason the attorney did that. I understand what you're saying, but I know it sounds weird to all your listeners, but we're taught in law school you've got to make those denials if you can't verify, even if it's the...
How can you not verify something that's in every record book, every college record book in the world?
The attorneys obviously did not. It doesn't matter anyway because they could prove if they wanted to. I think they just don't want to make Lesnar sound more important than he is. That's the bottom line.
Well, but you're wrong about that because in the suit they're trying to make him sound real important because he damaged the company by leaving.
Then why deny he was the champion? Or like,
well, they didn't deny he was WWE champion. They denied he was NCAA champion. They affirmed he was WWE champion whatever number of times, 3 or 5, I think 3 times, that it is.
I don't understand it, but in general, you just do that as a tactic because you got to do those general denials in your answer.
Well, they denied enough stuff that they could deny. I thought that denying he was NCAA champion or...
It was kind of stupid.
I'm looking at that and I'm going like, you know, if I'm a judge, I mean, I know that you guys are taught this. If I'm a judge and I see someone deny, you know, I deny that, you know, Hank Aaron hit 755 home runs, it's like, you know, save your credibility in your lives for when you need them because you've just lost all credibility with me because I can look that up in any record book and go 2000 NCAA heavyweight champion Brock Lesnar and it'll take me 1 second to find it.
Oh man, crazy stuff. Should I hang on or do you need me?
Yeah, go. You can hang on, sure.
Okay.
Okay, we're back with more right after this. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We've got James on the line. We're going to talk to him in just a second. I want to just mention really quick that the whole Brock Lesnar lawsuit is actually an article that I just wrote. It'll be in this coming week's issue of the Observer. And if you want, there's information on how to subscribe to the Observer at www.wrestlingobserver.com. And if you're listening now and you mention that you heard this on the air, you can get, if you order a 40-issue subscription of the Observer, not only can you get the 2 free historical issues of your choice that we offer generally that's on the site right now, but you can also get a history of the World Wrestling Federation, a 3rd free issue, history of the World Wrestling Federation, you know, either 74 to 83 or 60 or 63 to 74 or 83 to 99. It's part of actually some chapters. It's from 2003 that I wrote it, but it's some chapters of a book that will eventually come out. I don't exactly know when, but anyway, that's another deal. But anyway, you can go up to this website and get that. And we're going to go back to James and talk about Brock Lesnar. Okay, James, what's up?
One of the last things about it, I apparently heard one of the points in the lawsuit was they didn't want him, or something that they were really upset about his obscene gestures.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. I mean, they tried to say that he ruined his market value as a heel by doing obscene gestures, and the joke on that is that about a month or so, 2 months later, that was about 3 months later actually. JBL walked like a Nazi in Germany, and he was awarded the championship. So, you know, I mean, that didn't, you know, they didn't think that hurt his market value. And you know, as far as obscene gestures, I mean, did that end and ruin the marketability of Steve Austin when he started doing that in '96?
No, it heightened his market.
Exactly. I mean, that was crap. I mean, there's a lot, you know. I mean,
they're just doing it to be stupid, and they think they can fool people. That's why they think they get a judge, and the judge does no research on it. You know, none of his clerks do research and think, "Oh, we can win this." You know.
Yeah, I know, but I just don't see them. I don't see them winning. Because
I don't either. I think for public policy reasons they're going to lose it. I think
that they're going to settle because I think that they're going to, unless they're arrogant. I can't see them winning it. And if they lose, they get that non-compete thing. I don't think they want that non-compete thing thrown out. So I think that they're going to settle in the end. But I think that they need to put up a good public fight until the settlement comes.
Yeah, that way they keep the pressure on. That way they go with more leverage into the settlement negotiation.
Exactly.
Well, hey, one last thing. I was wondering what you thought about the whole, I guess it was Couture who made the comments before the fight or whatever.
Oh, my God. When I read Couture's comments before the fight, it was like, uh-oh, time to bet on Liddell.
What happened? Did he just see that he wasn't in shape? Or
well, he was in shape. You know, maybe, you know, age hits you, and you know, you can fool people by getting your body looking in a certain way. I mean, Ken Shamrock's body looked phenomenal. Couture's looked maybe better than Shamrock's. Couture was in the best physical looking shape that I have ever seen him ever. He looked better at 41 than he looked at 25 or 20 or whatever. He was actually late 20s when he was in the NCAAs and so. But you know, or any time in his UFC career. However, you know, maybe you're not moving quite as good. Whatever it was, when I heard, you know, it's like it's really not that important if I win or lose. It's like, well, to the other guy, it's live or die, and you know, I don't know. It was very much a different fight, and you know, it was a devastating knockout. Couture had never been knocked out before in a fight, and
I missed it. I only got to see the thing last week, and I don't have pay-per-view capability, so I didn't get to go to a bar or anything to see it. But I just read the results, and I'm going, no wonder he said that. You know?
Yeah, he looked really small at that weight at the weigh-in, but I want to tell you something. In the ring, he didn't look small.
Really?
But he did facially, he looked old. He's aged a lot in the last 2 years.
Do you think the age factor had something to do last week with Shamrock? I know it was on the
age factor when you're 41. It has to do with it in both fights. It had a lot to do with it.
Do you think it was that psychology also, or that's something that put it? Shamrock got how it handed to him. Maybe it's going to be handed to me also. I don't know.
I don't know about that because I think in Randy Couture's mind, he's a very different person because he's very different than Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock lived a wild life and Randy Couture didn't. So. Shamrock's body has more miles on it, more injuries on it, and stuff like that. But
like the nasty boy smashing a lamp on his head or something.
Well, it's not. Believe me, not just that. It means it's surgeries after surgeries and fighting. And when Ken Shamrock started fighting, in Pancras, I mean, they did their submissions and they did their training for real, and then they did those matches every month, or every 5-6 weeks. And everyone that came from that early Pancras system. Their joints were just destroyed by the time the thing got popular, and they, Frank Shamrock was the same way. I mean, his knees were shot at 25, and that's when, and then he started getting, some, notoriety. They trained in a way that, in hindsight, was not. I mean, it was the state of the art at the time,
but not smart.
But no one knew smart from dumb then. It was the beginnings of the sport, but yeah, it wasn't smart. They overtrained and beat their bodies up. They trained too hard.
Well, bottom line, let you go, but just say kudos to Angle and Guerrero for what an amazing match on Thursday. That had me on the edge of my seat when I was watching.
Yeah, that might have been the best TV match of the year. I've seen some pay-per-views just as good, but fantastic, man.
And the psychology with the Michaels and Angle match was amazing. I really just got into the psychology of him yelling at him and then kicking him in the face, do the super kick. I was just amazed at how they worked it. They could have done all these crazy spots and crazy moves, but they played it smart, and it was the best match of the year, with Angle and Shawn at WrestleMania, I thought. But
I tell you what, I liked AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels on whatever pay-per-view it was that they were on, I think the January one, for TNA, the Iron Man match. I like that match slightly better, but, I've taken nothing away from Angle and Michaels. I know people who thought Angle and Michaels was the best match they'd ever seen in their lives that have been in the business for 30 years.
Wow.
So it was an awesome match for sure.
Well, let's get some other guests on. Sorry to keep you on this.
Okay, no problem. Thanks a bunch, James. Okay, now we're going to really go to Ed for real. Ed, what's up?
Hey, Dave. What I want to talk about is I read on your notes you're talking about the Fritz von Erich book.
Yeah.
And you were saying how that writing the book ruined the friendship with this guy and Kevin, that Kevin hated the book. And I figured if Kevin would hate a book about the Von Erichs, it would actually be pretty good, but you said it was pretty bad.
Oh, no. I got the book when it first came out, and this was years and years ago, and it just wasn't a good book. I mean, it would be, Fritz or Jack Atkinson, basically what it was Jack Atkinson was dying of cancer. And Ron Mullinex, who, installed his computer and taught him computers, and they became friends, and they'd go to Fritz's ranch, and they would drink and, watch sporting events, football games, and things like that. And Fritz wanted to tell his life story, but Fritz was a con man to the end. And, I mean, the whole story is that, not just that wrestling was real, now it's not real, but then it was real, and his matches with Johnny Valentine, Kiniski, and all those guys were real. But just, maybe his memory wasn't the best, but just, it was, it was the same stuff that they used to tell the wrestling fans in the 80s, like Kerry Von Erich, would have, won the Olympics in the discus, except that, Carter boycotted. And I mean, he was a good discus thrower, but there's a big difference between, being, a high school record holder in Texas, which he was, and being, an Olympic team member, which he had, very, very, he had no chance of being. He wasn't that, he never won NCAAs or anything like that. But it was a book filled with stuff like that, and
it's still just basically just lies and not the actual truth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why Kevin didn't like it. You'd have to ask him, but you've heard. I mean, anyone who's heard Kevin interviews, Kevin's still.
Did you read the one from the Israel newspaper? Or
that was actually fascinating. It's interesting to see because here you got a guy, Kevin, who's Kevin to be 47, 48 now. And, when that guy was, in his 20s, I mean, they were something in this world, going to Israel. I mean, that wasn't exaggerated. I mean, I think this is an exaggerated thing, but I mean, the joke was that when, they would always have wars in that part of the country. And during that hour when world-class wrestling was on, they would stop the wars because all the soldiers on both sides wanted to watch the Von Erichs, and that's probably exaggerated, but I mean their popularity in that country was unbelievable. So Kevin talking about going there and everything like that, and it's kind of funny that it's ironic, I guess, that the son of a guy who did a Nazi gimmick to make his fame, that the Suns were like the biggest sports heroes in Israel a generation later.
Yeah, I just saw some of the comments, that it's just so out there. Like, I think he stated that Kerry lost his foot because he was racing a car, a friendly race between him and a police officer. And, I mean, it's really hard how he still just tries to justify all this so many years later.
Yeah, well, they were brought up a certain way, and I mean, I don't think that he knows any better. It's just they were brought up. A lot of those guys that came from that generation. And of course his father was from that generation. Those guys, the whole world was a con to them. They were conning the marks out of their money by presenting these fake fights that were real, so to speak. Okay, I mean today it's a very different mentality of the business because everyone knows what it is and they're presenting you entertainment. I'm not even saying that it's necessarily better now, but it's a healthier attitude that the people in it have, and the people, no one's trying to pull the wool over your eyes in the same way. They are, probably in other ways they are, but. Those guys, because they thought that they were conning, I mean, their lives became a con, and they thought, they could con everyone all the time, and some of them could get away with it, or get away from it as they got older, and some of them it was the only life they knew, and they couldn't get away from it. I mean, there are wrestlers from that era who will probably still not admit that, their matches were worked. I mean, some of them.
Yeah, I guess Kevin will go to his dying day without ever breaking kayfabe.
A form of kayfabe, I would almost be certain of, yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I was wondering. I know you're very busy with the newsletter and everything, but have you ever thought about sitting down and writing a book about the Von Erichs or something?
People have asked me about that one. I mean, I've written, chapters, you know what I mean, when every one of them died.
The tribute books, and I mean, you did such a great job. I mean, I would really. Because, I grew up, I everything I ever heard when I was a kid was, I found out later that they were lies or exaggerations, and I would like, I really would like to read, myth from fact, and...
Yeah, I lived in Texas in 83 and 84, which was the height of the kids, like Kevin, David, and Kerry, and when David died. And, I mean, it was something, I mean, it was... Unless you were there and lived through it, I can't adequately describe it. If you watch it on tape, you can kind of see it. I mean, I'm not saying it was the biggest thing in wrestling ever, because it wasn't, but it was a unique thing, and it's really sad if you look back at those tapes, because there was these young guys that were just over like crazy, and not just the kids. I mean, when Chris Adams and the Freebirds, and, many others, and so many of them, Gino, passed away from drugs and suicides, and it's an incredible story. I mean, no question. I mean, if you'd written a movie about it, people would just go, it's totally unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for taking my call, Dave.
Okay, very welcome, Ed. We will be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez, of course, on the road, coming back from Cauliflower Alley, where Terry Funk, by the way, was honored with the Mike Mazurki Award, which is kind of like their big award for the year. Jack Briscoe got the Luthez Award. Les Thatcher got the Art Abrams Award, which is like a Career Achievement Award. So congratulations to all of those people. We're going to have Terry Funk back on the show in May. Dusty Rhodes will be on the show on May the 8th. Also, I want to plug tomorrow night on Ron Barr's show, on this very same network, Dusty Rhodes will be on. So, going to get a lot of Dusty. We'll talk about the book. And if you haven't gotten Terry Funk's book, get it. So anyway, we've actually said that probably too many times already. I want to go real quick to Matt in Vancouver. Matt, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Going good.
Okay, just a couple questions. Raw's going to be in Madison Square Garden tomorrow?
Raw and SmackDown, both.
Yeah, with Jim Ross versus Triple H, do you think that's sort of like a bad way of booking things, or how are they going to book it?
Oh, I think we got to see what it is. I mean, on paper, it's not a match that I want to see for 100 reasons. Obviously, it's not going to be a great wrestling match. I hope they don't try to do something to Jim Ross that gets him hurt. I don't expect him to get hurt for real, but I'm talking about storyline-wise, because if they do something where Jim Ross gets hurt, then we got like a week or two of Coach, and it's like, man, every time they do that, it just drives me crazy, because Coach can't carry a 2-hour show. What can I say?
Was it Jim Ross's idea?
Jim Ross doesn't want to wrestle. Are you kidding? I'm sure it's not Jim Ross's idea.
Is he a kiss ass in WWE just to be like I don't know, just that he's friends with Triple H and all this sort of stuff, or?
Well, I mean, he's in the company. I mean, Triple H is the heir to the throne. You know what I'm saying? Kiss ass. I don't know if that's a good term at all. I mean, he's doing what he's told because that's his job, and you got to remember that, he was head of talent relations for a long time, and he told all the talent that you've got to do what's told. So it would look really bad if, they suggested something to him and he just started, complaining about it. So he doesn't complain, he just does it.
How long does he have till he retires until Todd Grisham takes his place?
God, hopefully forever, because I don't want to see Todd Grisham in that role, at least until he knows who some of the wrestlers are. Anyway, we got to head out. Okay, Matt, thanks very much. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on! Get it on!
Okay, welcome here to the second hour of Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're going to have Larry ZBYSZKO up in just a couple of minutes. I want to get one phone call in before we go to Larry. It's going to be Jason in New York City. Jason, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Dave? Listen, I'm a big fan of your show. It's a gift, I swear.
Thanks.
I have a question. With all of this recent WWE firing, how do wrestlers like Bob Holly still have a job? And, what benefits do you serve the company? He's never on TV. How come...
He's the Velocity champion. No, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the firings, and I think that what Bob Holly has is that he's just been with the company for so long, and he kind of has tenure, and he's got the right friends, and... and granted, he causes trouble sometimes, but I think it's trouble that they're not, they must condone, because he's still there, and a lot of guys who didn't seem to certainly didn't beat anyone up aren't there, so, and are better wrestlers.
Yeah. I mean, listen, thanks.
Okay, very welcome. That was quick. By the way, you can join us at 1-800-878-PLAY while ZBYSZKO up. Right after the commercial break, I'm going to go to Jeff in New York City. Jeff, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much.
How are you?
Doing really good.
That's good. Question before the end. Did you get a chance to watch the Jack Johnson tape?
You know what? I have it upstairs, and I have not watched it because I'm so far behind. I'm still trying to catch up on my Ring of Honor tapes too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's so many tapes, and there's so much news. I've spent so much time writing, so it's. It's kind of hard to catch up on. I'm trying right now. I'm working on the Ring of Honor from tapes that I got just about 2 weeks ago.
Oh really? Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, I love Ring of Honor tapes, so
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
All right, no problem. Well, everyone has a lot of everyone's busy, so.
I know.
I know. I had a question about something I read today by the Torch. That a lot of people have not lost respect, but just they're questioning Lance Storm's reputation because he stood up to JBL and Bob Holly. You hear anything about that?
I don't know exactly how you want to say stood up. He was confronted by them. I mean, Lance Storm is not a guy who looks for trouble. Lance Storm's a straight shooter. If you know what I'm saying. He's a good athlete, and he was trying to tell some of the OVW guys, he's trying to give these guys advice on what not to do, and kind of, said that, there are certain people, that are bullies and things like that, and mentioned JBL and Bob Holly, and the word got to JBL and Bob Holly, and at WrestleMania, or that WrestleMania weekend, they had some words with Lance Storm, but nothing really escalated from there. I mean, it could have, but it didn't.
Yeah.
But, differences of opinion, and I think, I don't know, it's just the reality of the business, and I think he was just trying to help those young guys that, when you go up there, You've got to get on their right side because, Jeff, how many guys have gone up there, done nothing wrong, and been told, like the word gets out, they have a bad attitude, they walked around too conceited, blah, 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 and the next thing you know, they get buried, whether they're good or bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So he's just, you got to tell the guys how to behave in the locker room because, it's a weird world. That's all I can say. And it's JBL and Bob Holly's world because they're the veterans.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Damn. All right. Can I stay after, or are you?
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have Larry on after though. But you can hang on, and we'll have Larry on right after you. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll be back right after this. You'll see Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Oh. Welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We've got with us the man in the commercial, Larry ZBYSZKO. Larry, how are you tonight?
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. We got tons of stuff to talk about, but. I guess the first thing, how's the golf game?
Hey, the golf game is great, baby. Let me tell you, after a couple months on the Hooters Senior Tour here, I went through the baptism of fire. I got, the etiquette down. I'm in the comfort zone. I've been working with this pro on the swing a bit. I haven't had much time to practice the first couple of months, but I've had some time now to practice up. We got one more event this week before I move on to the Sun Belt Tour and the Monday qualifiers, and it's all coming together.
Mm-hmm. As far as that goes, what have you learned? What's the difference between golfing in tournament form and golfing just as what you had done forever?
Oh God, I tell you, there's a bunch of stuff. Bobby Jones said there's golf and there's tournament golf. Golfing with the buddies is one thing, and in the tournaments it's different. It's the nerves, it's the soul. As soon as you start thinking, you're dead meat. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things running through your mind out in the tournaments. Like, I'll give you an example. It took me 2 months to realize how not to cast my shadow. Mm-hmm. Things you don't think about when you're playing with your buddies, and your shadow's over the hole or going across the tee when someone's shooting. And the rules are a biggie. A lot of the rules you don't think about when you're playing with the buddies, they all come into play there. I remember one day I was playing, it was like 38 degrees. It was windy, snot was flying, your eyes are watering, your hands are numb. And I put the ball on the tee, it's howling, and I take a practice swing, and the club barely nicks the ball, but it shoots off the tee and rolls in some bush. And the guys I'm playing with go, oh, shit, you got to play that. I'm going, oh, man, I'm hacking it out of some bush like a moron and in a bunker in the rough. I would take a 10 on the hole. And then after I turn in the score, the PGA guy says, oh, Larry, you didn't have to take that. The ball's not in play until it's deliberately struck off the tee. Now, if it was in the fairway and you accidentally hit it or moved it, it's a penalty stroke. But on the tee, it wasn't. So it's all kind of stuff like that goes through your mind, along with not feeling like a moron out there. But it's been an interesting 2 months, and things are clicking in, brother. Pretty soon you're going to be watching me on the Champions Tour.
Now, what do you have to do to qualify for that?
Well, there's a couple things. I'm going to start playing on these Monday qualifiers, which means you go there Monday before the tournament. And, so many guys show up, 50, 60, 40, whatever. And the top 4 or 5 or 6 guys, how many spots they got. The top 4 or 5, 6 guys. Then if you make them, on the Monday, then you play in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Is that
so the living legend's on his way?
Now, wrestling-wise, you do independence here and there. You're working with TNA a little bit. What's your view as far as the wrestling scene in 2005? With the TV scene and everything like that, what's missing? What's kind of like your overview of everything right now?
Well, I tell you what's missing. I don't even know if you could bring it back. What's missing to me is the characters. There are no more, Fuji and Tanakas or George Steeles or Koloffs or Iron Sheiks. There's a lot of the same. And not only is it a lot of the same stuff, it's a lot of the same guys over and over and over. To me, wrestling's very stale. And, it would be tough to change it around. I think you could. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just a whole bunch of Huracan Ranas and no soul.
Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts as far as when the last 2, 3, or in the WCW run. At what point, or at what point did you see trouble afloat, or did you always see trouble afloat?
Well, yeah, it was never smooth in WCW. There was a different boss every year, which brought in a different point of view every year. I remember when I decided to go into the broadcasting, Bill Watts came in, and he had this big point of view that everybody around 40 years old was totally useless, and the new thing to save the business was to promote all the young guys. Of course, what he really meant was Eric Watts.
Yeah.
And then after that, it got good for a while, and we had it smoking for a while. The New World Order and all the big names and surprises for the fans, and then. Boy, as soon as it got real big, I saw some of the prima donnas kind of take over, and I saw the beginning of the end. And then when the upper echelon kind of switched, to the corporate office and Vince Russo, when the people were chanting Goldberg and the writer was the heavyweight champion of the world, it was time to run.
I thought it was time to run before that.
Well, it was, but the writing was on the wall, but. It was just getting there. It was too bad, really, because it should have been bigger than ever.
Yeah. Well, and it was bigger than ever at one point, but they didn't know how to keep it, and I don't think that they really know how. I don't think they really knew how they got it there. It just kind of got there. Momentum just snowballed, and it got so huge, but I don't think they knew how they got it there. And then they were they didn't realize. I think they thought that it was just going to stay there forever, just because they were geniuses, and then they started making, I think they were making mistakes when it was doing well, but then, there was that 1999 year where they just completely lost control.
Well, yeah, it started good with a good idea that actually came from the days of the AWA. They wanted, when the AWA was about to close and WCW just started, they wanted to do the so-called invasion thing, where some of the AWA guys came into WCW. They wanted me to wrestle Sting when I had the AWA belt and blah, blah, blah. That never happened. But the influence of that via Eric Bischoff, who was in the AWA at the time, and Greg Gagne, who was in the WCW office for a little bit, kind of started what became the invasion of the New World Order. Then it got so big, but the people who thought the original idea weren't involved anymore. And it's like you said, they didn't realize how big it would get. And before you knew it, it wasn't big business. It was a few big prima donnas who started ruining things, and some upper echelon people that didn't know how to, how to captain the ship.
No, do you think that those guys, because one of the things that I never could understand watching this thing was the guys who were running it down and not caring. In some cases, now some of them ended up landing on their feet and not and whatever, but others lost the greatest job that they ever had, because they would never give. And to me, it's like, wouldn't you want to, if the job's paying you 7 figures a year in wrestling, wouldn't you want to get as many years out of that job as possible, as opposed to just like have 1 year of glory where you never lose, and then there's no job and no one remembers it anyway?
You know what, Dave? You're right if you thought in terms of being a true professional wrestler, someone who loved the business. Unfortunately, the guys we're talking about were guys who came from the steroid factories or the gyms or ex-bouncers at strip clubs or whatever, and they weren't true professional wrestlers. They didn't love the business. All they cared about was themselves and their own deal. They had no idea what the responsibilities were of the top talent or the upper echelon, for the business. They didn't realize that they only got there because other people put them there. It wasn't that they were great. And it just got out of hand.
Now, where do you think the disconnect came? Because the guys who came in the 70s, had to learn. You came through the 70s, and you had to go from place to place to place, and it took you years to really make a name and things like that. In the 80s, there were less places to go. By the 90s, it was a completely different ball game, and in a completely different, for positives and negatives, but completely different kind of characters.
Oh, well, yeah, it was. That was the metamorphosis. Well, you should read my book when I'm done writing it.
Oh, you're gonna write one too?
Yeah, I got one about halfway written, and talking to some publishers. But it kind of takes you to 30 years through my eyes. But the early '80s was the big change. The early '80s was the end of the old school. It was the end of the era of tradition. It was the end of the era when guys came into business because they loved the business, and it was the beginning of I don't know. It was just the beginning of a whole different system of the business. It was the beginning of what the old timers would crab about because they knew what would follow it, and it did. Even though for a handful the money got huge, but in the long run. It changed and it was different. It was very stale in some periods of the early 90s, and then it got hot at the end of the 90s, and now it's back to very stale again.
Larry, hold on, and we'll be back with more right after this. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're here with Larry ZBYSZKO, whose professional wrestling career started under the auspices of Bruno Sammartino back in the early 70s in Pittsburgh, where he grew up and wrestled in high school, and then went on for over 30 years. Currently, he's with NWA TNA, still works independents, and at one point held the record for the largest gate in the history of professional wrestling for a 1980 match at Shea Stadium with Bruno Sammartino, and that was one of the biggest, and everyone remembers the Shea Stadium, but what a lot of people don't also remember is that up and down the Northeast, in whether it was Boston, Capitol Center, Madison Square Garden, Pittsburgh, you were probably setting gate records, and just that was the hottest feud that they had ever had up to that point in time.
Oh, it was unbelievable, Dave. It was unbelievable for the times and for an event that happened, and we didn't know it at the time, but basically was the last biggie of the old school and that era and the way it was handled. It was a classic, brother.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing on that one. You had the Shea Stadium match, and you were on top, and you were, drawing like, tremendously as a heel, and you had never been in, at least in that. Had you ever even been a heel before? I know you never had been in New York a heel.
No, I never was. It was another baptism of fire. It was something where I was on the spot, and I knew that it was time to sink or swim. So. It was, I don't want to sound too cocky, but thank God I was a natural on the microphone.
Well, no, here's the thing. Whose call was it? Was it your call? Did you ask Bruno? Did you ask Vince Sr. or whomever? How did that whole, thing come about as far as, you had always been, tag team champion with Tony Gurria. You had been Bruno's protege, and you had never really been in the top single spot. And then all of a sudden, you were, you put in the feud with Bruno where you were working on top, and it was really hot, and it was probably, one of Bruno's great feuds. But what was the metamorphosis of it? Did who made the first call? And did anyone, if it was you or Bruno, did anyone go, no, come on, Larry's never proven himself. Well, did any of that happen, or was it just like someone came up with the idea? Right, give us the background of that whole idea.
Well, you know what? You're going to have to read my book to find out the whole story. I'll put it in a nutshell, kind of, but there was a lot of heat between everybody over that situation. It almost didn't happen. Bruno was upset with me. He still is. He's kind of bitter anyway. Man did not believe in it. I was a very frustrated individual at the time because of the guys I was raised with. I knew how important it was. I knew what it took to become a name. I knew how to do it, but it was hard getting the chance. I went down south and got screwed over a little bit by the cliff that was in place, and then when I went back up to New York, I saw some situations that were written on the wall because of two things. One, the WWF territory was on its butt. Bob Backlund, the champion, a nice guy that Bob is, but he's a fart in church. And they weren't making any money. Their houses were horrible. And Bruno was retired. He was doing the broadcasting. So, I saw the situation, and I knew sooner or later, because of the business, that the McMahons were going to beg Bruno back in the ring somehow, sooner or later. And I was going to make sure that I was the guy. And I went to Vince McMahon and Senior, and basically we had some talks, but he didn't believe in it. In those days, Vince McMahon Sr., the old school promoter that they were set on their ways, and their ways was that a bad guy should be some kind of 300-pound, brute, ugly-looking guy. And, for me, 240 pounds with the baby face kind of look, and that, like you said, being tag teamed with Tony Gurria, he probably felt he was throwing me a bone because I was Bruno's protege. Or, if I started another way, I probably wouldn't even have been a tag team champion, with the way the McMahons thought at those days, which was an insult to me because, again, you had promoters that could promote something if it was over, but had no idea how to get it over. And they still don't have that respect and understanding of true talent anyway. So me and the McMahons got in kind of a beef, and Bruno, who was retired, got mad at me because I put pressure on the whole situation because I knew Bruno didn't want to wrestle again. He just broke his neck with Stan Hansen. And it got to be, such a demand in terms of the people wanting Bruno back and the WWF needing to make money, because when I heard they were on the verge of bankruptcy at one point.
Wow.
And it was kind of a lot of different circumstances that led to this, and Bruno wasn't happy about it, and some other things that happened, and unfortunately, he still won't talk to me as of this day. He snubbed me at that last Wrestle reunion they had in Tampa, and that's too bad he got so bitter.
Now, I read somewhere, and I don't know if there's anything to this. Is there, I know they're doing like a Bruno tribute thing in August. Is there any chance that you're going to wrestle Bruno? Because it sounded far-fetched to me, but, has that been brought up?
No, there's no way. Guy's 70 years old.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking, but any back surgery?
No, yeah, no, there's no way.
Yeah. Okay, so now you go in there, you have the feud with Bruno, and I remember as a fan, the one thing that feud was there, you had your cage match and you were gone, and you never went back. And it's very rare, in that territory that somebody left on top because, that from WWF, before the Hulk Hogan era, had very patterned, predictable booking. A heel would come in, they would shoot to the top, they'd wrestle whether it was Bruno or Bob Backlund or whomever, they would get their title shots and then they'd spend a year in the territory working their way down, and then they'd go to another territory.
That was it.
You were there, and as a fan watching this, knowing the pattern, it was like, hey, you're supposed to have your year on the way down. You never really had to run with Backlund. You had some matches with Backlund, but the run was with Bruno. You probably should have run with Backlund because you had so much heat. That didn't happen. You were gone. And the other thing about wrestling is in general rule, even when guys leave an area, on bad terms, if they have a track record of having drawn, 2-3 years later, all is forgiven because business always goes down, and you're back. And you actually never went back.
You're right. I never went back. And, it's a combination of those bitter feelings I talked about during the whole thing. Not only did the McMahons, probably not like me because I don't kiss butts. I would have been a lot better off if I did. But, Bruno, too, with the influence he had, because he was still there doing some wrestling shots. And never once would he, speak up or want me back either. So it was a double whammy from, the McMahons not wanting to deal with me and Bruno not sticking up for me either. So, unfortunately, it turned out kind of bad. It's too bad, but
Do you ever, I mean, do you look back and just go, wow, you know, here I was, you know, I mean, as you know, as hot as any heel that they ever had, and yet, you know, and how old were you at the time? You were
27, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you're 27. You're, you know, in wrestling terms, in those days, maybe not today, but in those days, that was years before your prime, because most guys, the way the business was, and you built your rep and blah blah blah. You know, your prime year started at 30, 35.
Oh yeah, 30, 35, 40.
Yeah, and I mean, you went places and you had a career and did well in the AWA and all that, but in that, your prime years was in that, they were in the spotlight, and I don't know. I mean, did you never get along with Vince Jr. or how was the relationship with Vince Jr. in those days?
Well, you really didn't deal with Junior that much. His dad was the guy. Vince Jr. was around here and there, but basically his dad ran the show. And he had some partners like Phil ZBYSZKO, but it was basically Vince Sr. I never dealt too much with Vince Jr. A couple times and during the big beefs, but you know what? To answer your question, as much as I would have liked to go back, and there would have been some great possibilities, even with Bruno and especially David when he started.
Yeah, 'cause that was another natural.
And, again, Bruno wasn't happy, so the politics wasn't there. I don't know if I would have fit. I went down to the Crockett's for a while, and that wasn't bad. I had fun wherever I went, but it wasn't that great. I found a home in the AWA, and it could be easier. But in the early '80s and mid-'80s, when the business changed, it was also a combination of I wasn't McMahon's cup of tea. Again, I was 5'11", 240 pounds. I could talk and I could work, with the best of them. But what he was into was the 6'6".
He was into the body business. Hulk Hogan and World War changed the business. Hold on, Larry, because we got to come back right after this commercial. But I want to talk to you about Hulk Hogan and the Road Warriors and that, 1984, I think it's changed the business. Anyway, we'll be back with more with Larry ZBYSZKO right after this. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Larry ZBYSZKO. We were talking about here professional wrestling was, and you mentioned it. Before we get to this, I actually want to get to one more thing. In 1980, in WWF, when you were there and left, I mean, what was it? You're frustrated? Were they frustrated? I mean, because it appeared to me to be pretty abrupt. And for a while there, now, did you disappear from wrestling, or it seemed like you were, for a while there, you were not at least in the mainstream, and then eventually, I remember you were in Georgia and a lot of other places after that. What was your chronology right after leaving New York? What got you out of there, and where did you go from there?
Well, it was time. We had some run-ins, and after the Bruno feud, it got to the point where the McMahons really just wanted me to become a squash guy to the, Moraleses and the Putskis, and almost, in revenge of the holding them up for money thing or whatever. But by the time I did that, I've been wrestling almost every day for 7 or 8 years. So I took a break. I took 6-7 months off, did some flying around to some islands with girlfriends, and went to Japan maybe once or twice, and after about a year or so, I got ready to get back in and went down to Georgia and tried some things out, or did some with the NWA, and it was okay, But then I found a home in the AWA. Vern Gagne was an old wrestler who appreciated guys that could wrestle the way I did, and it was fun. I didn't make as much money as if I would have been a Roddy Piper or something, but I didn't stay in the business just for money. I loved it.
Now, in 1984, I always sort of saw that as a turning point. Obviously, it was a turning point because Vince McMahon went national, and the entire business changed from what it once was. But the other thing, and 84, it actually started before 84 because I noticed it with Hogan in the AWA and the Road Warriors in Georgia, and all of a sudden you had the big steroid guys come in, and the thing wasn't so much that, because there were big steroid guys before those guys, but I mean, and I noticed it, and more with Road Warriors. When they came in, it was by going in there and doing the one-sided match where you gave nothing back, and it got them over, and they made a lot of money with that gimmick. I thought that it really changed fans' perception of wrestling completely. They were the cool guys because they didn't sell, but
they didn't get beat up.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, the babyface who sold. The people were just like, well, that made him weak. So it was, some of the old babyface characteristics that they're actually a little bit more in vogue now, where we're kind of out, and it was tougher for guys, and then it was tougher for small guys because people thought, well, if this was real, the big guys would always beat the small guys, which we've learned is hardly always the case. But that was the fans' belief, and the promoters. I wouldn't say all the promoters, but some of the promoters fostered that belief, and it made it difficult for someone who didn't look really physically impressive to be the top superstar in the business.
Well, you know what? You got to read my book, brother. I bring this all into focus because it just wasn't the promoters. It was almost like it went along with the timing of mankind, and not only were they big guys and giant-sized guys, but they were also a combination of giant and surrealistic-looking characters. And the movies which influenced mankind so much, from the Road Warrior with Mel Gibson to the Road Warrior gimmick, and the Hulk from the comic book, and the Ultimate Warrior. It was a time when the Rambos and Arnold Schwarzeneggers appeared on the scene, and these movies. Where mankind changed. Good guys were out of date. Bad guys became the good guys, and good guys became idiots. You were stupid if you didn't shoot somebody because you knew they were going to shoot you. Where in the old days, it was the good guys never drew first.
Yeah.
And it was wrestling went nationwide, and it went the way that the world was going. And it caught on. It got very popular. It was very novel because for the first time, it presented more like a show, and the world took attention because it is a show. And it was interesting, and of course they didn't know how to keep it going, and that got stale.
No, and things always do because you have to kind of change, and the characters. I think the characters have to be different. I think one of the problems with today's wrestling is that everyone is taught in the same style, and worse than they're taught in the same style is that there's a certain prototype of what they want guys to look like, and not only do they recruit guys who look like that, but the guys who don't look like that are pretty much pressured. If your hair's long, cut it. Yeah. If your body's not good, you do whatever it takes to get your body looking like everybody else. So you got a whole crew of guys that are, you've got the Steve Austin copies, and you got the, you know what I mean?
Well, you know what? I tell you, if I click on Raw, I'm going to see a bunch of guys flying through the air. They got long, shiny tights, abdominals, all clean-shaven bodies, long hair, flying. I couldn't tell if it's Edge or Christian or Jericho, or I wouldn't know who the hell it was. Mm. And there's so many of them, and it's all mostly the same. And even the guys like Batista, even though they're 6'6", they look the same as the guys who were 5'2". They all look the same.
Now, as far as whatever happened to the lawsuit over the living legend name with Jericho and WWE, is that still ongoing? Has it kind of disappeared?
I got to talk to the lawyer. I really don't know what's going on. It's probably going to be a double knockout. It wasn't a big money thing or a big deal. It was just like, come on, just stop using it.
Yeah.
So, it's not it's probably just something else he can hate me over.
What led to the thing? A couple of years ago, you were on a pay-per-view from Vegas, I think it was, and you did this big long interview about McMahon. What was your mentality going into that?
Well, you know what? It was just basically, I called their offices and talked to some people and said, hey, why are you taking my thing? Anyway. To make a long story short, they were kind of arrogant. They just wouldn't stop it, and I didn't know what to do. And I kept getting all these calls from people who, thought I was going to go work there or do something with Jericho or all this, and I just didn't want to get it all confused. So I just went on the WWA and just kind of laid it on the line. And, just saying, hey, if you don't want to stop it, come on, Vince, let's settle this. What the heck?
Mm-hmm. I want to go to Steve in Las Vegas. Steve, what's happening? I'm
doing great, Dave. I'm wondering, do you aggravate the other golfers when you stall before that first stroke?
Hey, wait, is there anything that you've learned from wrestling that gives you a mental advantage on those golfers because they haven't done that? Probably not then.
You know what? The only thing I noticed out there is there's a lot of guys who are good golfers, but they can't golf good out there because people are staring at them. And that's one problem I don't have from all the years of being on television and in front of the camera. Actually, the more people that stare at me, the better I'll do because I'm Jim Breton is better under pressure.
Now, also, and Steve, go ahead in just a second, but on the tour and everything like that, I mean, how is it seeing, most of those guys came from the golf world and were golfers, some of them competitive their whole life, but you're coming from, even though you golfed forever, you're coming, your notoriety going into this was Larry Zbyszko, 20-plus years, almost 30 years as a professional wrestler. How did they look at you? Did they look at you as an outsider like the WWE would look at someone that came from another organization? Or is it just like, hey, he can golf and he just happened to wrestle?
You know what? The guys have made me feel so at home that I can't tell you, a lot of them out there, grew up with me. They remember the name or there's always a handful of fans. But it's amazing how the talk spreads through golfers like it does through wrestlers. And guys would come up to me that I've never played with or met that would say, oh, yeah, you're the wrestler I heard about. And, I saw you on the Golf Channel. The Golf Channel did a story on me. And, I heard your Morphoplex commercial. But it's amazing how I'm the talk of the tour day. There's on me, baby. So now I got to go out and do some good stuff. And, if you think about it, outside of Jesse, who became the governor, no professional wrestler ever went from professional wrestling into a sport.
I'm sure there's a few. I mean, Brock Lesnar tried.
Yeah, but he didn't do it.
But he didn't do it. And Jesse didn't go into a sport though. Jesse became a governor, like Brock became an actor. I mean,
what I'm saying, outside of wrestlers,
Yeah, but I know.
Wrestling to something.
Yeah, you go into a totally different field. Rock did, but yeah, a lot of them. Steve, anything?
Well, I was going to talk about the CAC and everything, but since you got Mr. Zbyszko, I think, Larry, that you're probably one of the most hilarious promos. And I'm so happy that I made you laugh because you've made me laugh a lot of times because you talk about idiots who would eat 2 pizzas and drink a Diet Coke, which is me, too. And I would really have wondered what kind of feud or tag team you would have made with Roddy Piper when you guys were both at your heights, as the way you guys talked and the attitude. I mean, that would have been either the feud of the century or the debate of the century or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that would have been great, wouldn't it, with just the interviews alone?
Yeah.
You have to be there. But that was the secret. If you got 2 guys, 2 characters, and you just gave them microphones, if they were good, people would have to watch it. It's that simple.
Yeah, I don't think either of you guys are going to win the body contest against Hulk Hogan and superstar Billy Graham, but you guys always would drive me to, I got to see what happens next.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you very much. That was the point. They don't do that now.
I mean, we got to head to a break right now. We only got a couple minutes left with Larry. But anyway, Steve, thanks very much. We'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're here with Larry Zbyszko. We got a couple of minutes left. Okay, so timing-wise, what's your book plans as far as how long before you think that you can
Well, between the golf, I'm going to have some more time to be writing it more next month or two. So hopefully maybe by the Christmas thing we'll get it done. And then I've been involved with the Morphoplex company, so I've been kind of busy lately. But, hey, someone tells me that every time you say my name, you say Larry, Mr. Morphoplex ZBYSZKO.
I sometimes say it. That's true.
Oh.
Now, how did you get hooked up with these guys?
Well, I tell you, to make a long story short, they were at TNA one day, and I was wrestling somewhere, and I pulled my back a little bit. My lower back was sore, and I was walking funny, and this guy came up and said, hey, look at I'm so-and-so, and I've, made this stuff, and blah, 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 and I started taking it, and damn, Dave, I haven't felt better in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
My elbows don't click, my back feels great, my knees feel great, the energy, I mean, I wouldn't endorse this if it didn't make me feel great. I mean, I go out and golf, and I'm loose. I'm not in pain. Unbelievable stuff. It's unbelievable stuff. I don't want to plug it, but morphoplex.com. I'm telling you, I wouldn't say that if it wasn't worth it. It's unbelievable. It's all natural. There's no toxins in it. It's great. You'd love it.
Yeah. Wait, no. When you're looking at wrestling, the weirdest thing, everything changes and all that. Right now, it's so important. Again, as it was in the past, to be able to cut a promo. Yet, there are no managers for guys who can't cut promos virtually at all. I mean, in the old days, it was important to cut a promo, but there were guys who never spoke a word, who drew huge money as main eventers because they had great managers. And how come it seems so obvious to me. I'm sitting here going, when they go, this guy can't cut a promo, but he can wrestle. And it's like, well, then get him a manager, but they never do.
Well, I'll tell you why. The promoters, for some reason, have decided that's not cool. But like we talked about earlier, they don't know how to get things over. They think they do. And then they replace managers with valets so they can show boobs and butts all night.
Yeah. Well, I'm not against the boobs and butts in moderation, if it draws, and at times it does. But I'm not saying, because you have boobs and butt doesn't mean that you can't have a great promo manager for a guy who can't do a promo there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what else they do, and this is my pet peeve in the wrestling business. It's one of the things that have made it so stale. I hate these stupid...
Well, everyone does.
And that's why you don't get good promos, because no one does promos. They talk to each other and pretend there's no secret camera.
Yeah, I know. Larry, we're totally out of time.
All right, Dave. Well, thanks, buddy.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, we'll be back. We're going to be, of course, we got the pay-per-view next Sunday. We'll be back in a couple of weeks on the 8th. We're going to have Dusty Rhodes, which should be an interesting show, to say the least. You'll see Wrestling Observer Live on Sports Byline Radio Network.